guys. Hope you're having a great Sunday. Give it just a few minutes to let everybody get in here. All right, starting to get some people in here. So today we're just going to be hanging out again. I've had a busy week. Haven't really had time to do much, but yeah, just take some questions and see what everybody's working on, and we'll just go from there. All right, good to see everybody. It's a little warmer today than it has been. So is this everyone's first live stream, or have you been here before? Just a reminder to everyone watching, you can always go back and watch my live streams over in the live tab. Eddie says it's his first time, and he's in Orlando, Florida. Well, hello, Eddie. Welcome to the live stream. Hopefully you're staying warm down there. It's about 58 here, so not too bad. I think yesterday at this time it was still in the 30s. It got down in the low 20s. He says it's 80 there. Oh, yeah. I wish it was 80 here. Well, welcome to the show. We'll try and jump into something here today. So you're a first-time owner. What car do you have? Kevin says he's working on buying a house, and I hope my new neighbors enjoy the driveway full of 944s. I'm buying a house as well. That's why everything's been hectic. So we've been moving and just trying to get everything organized. Luckily, we have like a whole month window to get things done, so we can move things a little bit at a time, and then finally we'll have the movers move in, all the rest of the stuff. But we went from a much smaller place to a larger place, so we're having to buy a bunch of new furniture just to fill the space in. So it's been a lot. So right now, I've got 4 944s that I own, and they're just kind of parked everywhere. None of them at the house. So try to keep the madness down. Eddie says he has an 85 944. Is that 85-1 or 85-2? I have two 85-2s myself. I got a garnet one and a black one. And he says, move to Florida, I need you here. I wish I could. I don't mind Florida so much, but that's probably not going to happen now. Yes, we're staying in Charlotte. So if you have the, well, if you're not sure if you have the 85.1 or the 85.2, one has sort of a square dash, and the other one has more of a rounded dashboard. So if you look at the dash, you can tell. It looks kind of rounded. You got a later one. That'd be a great video to make as well. In all my time working on these cars, I've only seen 2 or 3 early 85s. Most of them are later 85s, but it would be really great to do a video. I want to do a video eventually on the differences between the early and late interior cars, but it might be more fun if I had both, one being 85.1 and the other one being 85.2. He says he's got the round. Okay, so you got an 85.2. Perfect. But good to know. There's a little bit of differences, especially when you're getting into the dash side of things and the interior parts that are quite a bit different. All right, so let's see. Needs a center console. Do you need the whole center console or just the lid? Usually the console lids break. Well, the hinges do, or what you would call a hinge. Actually, I'm replacing 3 of those right now. They'll break and then the top will get lost. Or people will use hinges to put them back together from the hardware store. It says mine is halfway ripped. Just the center where the stick shift goes. Okay. We got a few more people in here. I want to welcome everybody to the live stream. I hope everybody's having a great day and staying warm. Basically, I'm just reading chat right now. So if you're working on anything, and even if you're not, feel free to jump in the chat. Eddie says that his 85.5 needs lots of parts. Bought it in a barn on running for $800. Jay says, hey Brent, 85.5, sunroof not working, but I do hear clicking from the rear. So that could mean that'd be the early sunroof mechanism on the 85.5. So you're probably hearing the relays click. I'd get back there and check the cable and just see what's going on. The early sunroofs are a little bit better at not breaking as often. If you ever get those done right, get them set up right, or if they've never gone wrong, they're pretty stout. What I see most of the time with the early sunroof is that the gear that goes right up there between the well, it doesn't go between anything. It's kind of just in the back between the arms, I guess. That mechanism likes to break off and just kind of hang there, but the sunroof will still work perfectly. But in your case, there could be something with the micro switches not releasing. Toasted Pirate says, I was just about to go for a drive in the 87 944S. All right. And Jim Zimmerman says, thinking about buying a 944. Any recommendations in terms of year or turbo or not? So it's a very good question. I own turbos. I own naturally aspirated. I mean, if you can get a turbo, get a turbo. There is one rule: buy the best one you can afford, and you're probably then going to have to put a lot of work into it. So we have some cars behind us. Some of them are fairly low mileage, and even then, you got to go through and do the seals. If it's been sitting, even if it only has 30,000 miles on it, seals rot out of it from sitting. In this case, the transmission seals are just leaking all over the place. You'll also have the fuel dried up in the tank. So I had to pull the pump, do a bunch of stuff to clean all that stuff out. So you might want to get a car that's been driven, but might need other odds and ends. Maybe there's a front leak on the front of the engine or something. But if you can get a turbo, most people are very happy that they went with a turbo. But get the best one you can afford. Don't try and go cheap on them. I would much rather do the belts, the rollers, simple things, replace all the seals on the front of the engine and get it back on the road than having to deal with a car that needs a bunch of interior work and body work. Then it just gets really expensive. You're going to end up paying more. But there's nothing wrong with the naturally aspirated cars either. I like them as well. I actually daily drive an 88 924S, and I've driven my turbos daily. A lot of fun cars. But again, like my 88 when I bought it, needed a water pump, and that was it. I went ahead and did all the seals, and I'll see people say that they bought a 944 and they did all this work and they got like 70 grand in it or something. And I'll buy them myself for less than $2,000. That's what I like to look for in a car personally, because I know that if it's not running, I can get it running. I wouldn't advise that for someone jumping into these cars, but that's kind of where I am. That's why I've never really done a proper how to buy one video, because I do things a little bit different than everybody else. I just try and look for a straight body. If it needs paint, I'll get it painted, but I try not to get into too much of the body work. You don't want to wreck the car. I had an 84. It was a beautiful car. I got wrecked, and I just didn't have time to do the body work on it. And it was fairly easy and fairly straightforward, but I just didn't have the time for it. So when I try and buy one of these cars, I want it to be something simple I can fix. And if I have to sand it down or something and repaint it, it's not going to be a big deal. But I don't want to have to take doors and Bondo the fenders and stuff. I just kind of want it straight where I sand it down and call it good. So in terms of like how I buy cars, like I said, I bought my 88 924S for less than $2,000. The engine was overheating, ended up being a seized water pump. Put a new water pump in it, went ahead and did the seals, went in and took the head off of it and did a bunch of work to it too. The body was perfectly straight. The car ran great, but this was years ago when you could find deals like that. But yeah, and I'll maybe putting 2 sets of tires on the car, both at like 80,000 miles each. I've probably got maybe $6,000 total into that car. So yeah, if you're willing to do the work yourself, it's not too bad. But buy the best one you can afford. You don't want to get in and all that interior stuff. With that car, didn't have to do anything to the interior. It was nice. The body was straight. Just needed a few things to get it going or easy. And I didn't try and just do things for the sake of doing stuff. Like I have a bunch of plated parts here doesn't need them, doesn't need it. You know, the engine's nice and clean as it is, doesn't leak anything. So you just drive it and enjoy it. There are times where I'm like, I should really have a really nice car. And I'm kind of working on that. That's what I want to do to the new one that I bought. So I'm kind of reading the comments here too. So every now and then I pause what I'm saying just as I read stuff. So Happy Fox says, did you ever remove the trunk glass and insert it into another frame? So in other words, if I ever tried to fix the hatch glass, yes, I've tried to fix hatch glass in the past, and I would never do it again. It's kind of like doing these torque tubes. I've done it once, and I'll pay someone to do it next time. So I would recommend, it might be hard to do this, but I would definitely recommend finding someone, even if you have to ship the glass off to someone to fix it for you, to fix it, and try and get a warranty with it or something. Because if you do it yourself and you glue it back together and it doesn't hold, then you're just going to be going around in circles trying to get that done right. But yeah, I would never do that, and I wouldn't recommend anybody doing that at the house unless, hey, I've had some pretty high skill level guys here with me, and even they would say they would never do that again. Yeah, he said nobody wants to do it. There are a few guys that have had glass companies do it for them. I don't know if they kind of realized afterwards they got in over their heads and wouldn't do it again. But I did hear someone a while back saying that they were going to start doing it as a full-time thing. But I pulled them out of junkyards, the hatch themselves, that were in perfect condition because someone's was leaking, and we would swap it over. But, you know, within 2 months, it's starting to do it again. So, yeah, he said he tried 30 car glass experts. It's going to be tough sell for some of these guys, but I do believe I heard, you might have to check around on some of the forums on Facebook, but I do want to say that someone was going to try and get into doing that, and I need to get their number as well, because if anyone ever wants one replaced, would need to send them to them. Toasted Pirate says, who do you recommend for paint these cars near Charlotte? So we got a couple of guys that we work with for paint. A lot of painters nowadays don't like to paint entire cars, so it's a tough sell. If you do all the body work, you can talk some of these guys into it, but otherwise they're not going to touch it. They all like to do insurance work, but there's some guys that will do it. They're not in Charlotte, but you get what you pay for. And honestly, you're better off if you're good with doing body work, do the body work yourself. Spend the time, take the time, whatever you do to make sure that the body work is well done, and then you can have them paint it. I know some really good painters, but you would want to do the body work yourself. I've painted a lot of these cars. We usually strip them down. We do the body work here, and we'll try and go with a painter we trust. And sometimes the owner decides that he wants to get something back a little bit quicker than that. I have seen us take the car apart. We didn't do the body work, and the guy sent it to Mako, and he got what he paid for. I think he had to take it back there several times just to get it right, and even then it was not as good as what we could have done if he just spent. It was going to probably be not too much more for us to go ahead and do that by the time he spent that at Mako and had to take it back repeatedly. But we do have some guys that are a little bit higher in our tier. Again, they won't touch it unless we are the ones that take it apart and we do the body work here, and then they'll paint it for us. But otherwise, that's about it. So if you're not looking to do the body work yourself, you can take it to Mako, but be prepared. You're probably going to spend a whole lot of money when you could have had a better paint job and to begin with. All right. Thank you guys for the questions. Keep on coming with them. Just kind of hanging out today. I've been really busy trying to move in to a new house. Good afternoon, Don. Hope you're staying warm. So Kevin brought up a great point. Says, in my opinion, the 944 S2 is a great compromise when it comes to choosing between a turbo and NA. With the S2, you get the turbo look, similar power, but more mechanical simplicity. To some degree, yeah. So I love the S2. Don't get me wrong. I like the way they look. I love the way they drive. They drive on the street, daily driver. They're way better than the turbo. I wouldn't exactly say that they're simple, though. That timing chain that's in the cover there, of course, once you change the chain and pads, then you really don't have to worry about it again for a long time. But you can get a turbo to be just as reliable pretty easily. Says, how often to change the timing belt? I've got 3 years on it. I need to check mileage, but yeah. So when it comes to the timing belts, there's a rule that I use personally, and then there's a rule that we go for customer cars and warranty. So one thing to realize is that belt technology is like nothing what it was back in the 80s when they started putting belts on cars. When they first started putting timing belts on cars, it really wasn't done, and the technology wasn't there. So the belts were failing. They were supposed to last 30,000 miles back then, but they were failing long before that in some cases. But in the 90s, belt technology was light years, and even tire technology jumped light years just in those years. So you don't really have to live by the 30,000 miles anymore. So much better. But if you got oil leaking on the belt or something going on in those belts, then, it's still a good rule of thumb to check them out. I still change mine at 30,000 miles, and I'll go 3-4 years on them. I think I last changed mine at the end of 2020. So it's about time for me to change my belts, but that's just a good rule of thumb. But when I pulled those in 2020, I think I'd done them in 2015 and they still look brand new. So like I said, belt technology is way better than it used to be. You used to pull these things off from the 80s, and at 30,000 miles, they were cracked up and rotted. But you don't really have that anymore. You could probably get one of these belts to go a lot longer, maybe double that, but wider. It's a $15 belt. Change it and sleep better at night. It's such an easy thing to change, and it's so cheap. It's like, why would you bother to do that? But yeah, it's probably about time for me to change mine, but I'm not going to really worry about it. It still looks good and looks new. But the worst thing you can do is let them sit. If they sit and you don't drive them very much, then then it's going to be harder on the belt. The first thing to go is the teeth on the belt. They'll just strip off. So you really want to, if it's been 3 years and you've only put 10,000 miles on it or something, you might just go ahead and change it. But I often hear people say things like, oh, well, my 1.8 liter Volkswagen went 150,000 miles before the belt broke. And it's like, yeah, it's a 1.8 liter, a 2.5 liter engine with a much bigger camshaft and much bigger cylinders, puts a lot more strain on the belt than a 1.8 liter does. So I don't think you're ever going to see them get consistently like 90,000 miles out of these belts, even with the belt technology the way it is. But yeah, you should probably, don't take my word for it, but I mean, I don't advise anybody but to change their belts frequently and whenever they feel comfortable. How about that? Because that's what I do. If I go in there and look at it, it's been like 4 years, but I drive mine constantly. It's like everyday driven. And if it's been, after 4 years, yeah, just change it. It's a $15 belt. So Eddie says, how much does a timing belt service go for on average? So we offer a lot more. I'm reading a few comments at the same time. So we offer a lot more in our belt service than a lot of people do. See, to me, the belts and the oil coolers, they fail at equal rates. So we just go ahead and do the oil cooler seals and make sure we test everything. And that way, when people leave here, they get a lot more than just that. I think that there's a few other places here in town that are comparable to our price, but we offer a lot more. So you're probably looking at $2,500 to $3,000 at just your regular place, and we're about that rate, but we give you a whole lot more stuff. And a lot of these guys, we see their cars after they're done with them too. We get those same cars in here, and yeah. So, what about the blue Gates belt? It's a complete waste of time because it's made of Kevlar on the outside of it. If I had a timing belt here, I'd show you. I've got one laying somewhere, but let me actually grab a belt. It shouldn't take me a second. Hold on. So timing belt here, and you never really want to bend these any more than that right there. But I want you guys to see the Kevlar belts that are blue have Kevlar throughout the belt on this side, but not reinforced here where the teeth are. And the teeth is what's going to shear off when they get wet with oil and start to dry rot with age. So you can look through the cam inspection port, and you can look and you'll see teeth going on there, and you'll assume that the belt looks good and everything's fine. But where it shears off is particularly at idle around the crank down here. So you'll stop at a red light, the engine goes down to 1,000 RPMs or so, and then this is where it strips off right there. So the rest of the belt will look good, but then the forces of the engine slowing down. The worst thing you can do for these belts is to just let them idle. They don't like to go slow because that creates a lot of this as it's jerking. So like the faster the engine's turning, like if you're driving your car every day and you're keeping it at high speed, well, the cam's got momentum now and it's not being jerky as normally normally would, and the crank's not jerking as normally would. So everything's moving a little bit smoother at higher RPM. So like the higher your idle, the less stress you're putting on your belt. And you'll also notice that big 4-cylinders, especially big 4-cylinders, don't like to idle below 800 RPM. They get really, really lumpy and jerky, and that's being taken out on your belt here. So it's typically the teeth that shear off on these. So you can buy that $100 Gates belt, but it's not going to stop the teeth from shearing off. All right, so that's a little bit about the belts. So yeah, this one here, I think some of these belts, this one is a, should be a Continental. It's usually what I order. Sometimes I get some Gates belts. I don't even know what that is, but it's a brand new belt. But and what I was going to say about it is that it's probably $15 belt. Put it on there, just drive it. So going back to the S2, I agree. The S2 shouldn't be disregarded. If you want a naturally aspirated engine, you don't want to get a turbo. But someone had asked, a few comments here I missed. Dennis said he uses modern industrial grade adhesive paints. Adhesive, paints the frame, etc. But I didn't see the comment before that said who does it. Okay. Dennis, I didn't catch your first comment. I scrolled up a little bit, but I'd like to know who that was so that way we can recommend someone to fix these frames. I would definitely like to know. And then Dennis also said the problem with the 16 valve is the ignition timing procedure. Yeah, it's not terrible. I've done quite a bit of them, but yeah, it's not fun. I think the worst part is that oh, okay. But yeah, the worst part of the 16 valves is getting in there and making sure those chain pads are changed, because they can, when they go, they can really destroy the head. But now, how often that happens? Probably too often, but that'd be my recommendation, getting in there and changing those as frequently as possible. I don't know the mileage on those, but I get them in here and you can tell they're still new at like 100,000 miles. So they last a while, but I have seen the damage it can cause. And then I don't think the timing is too bad, but it's a little above like what the home mechanic would probably want to deal with. Okay, so Dennis wrote back. He says, sorry, Jose Cacaro in Massachusetts. Okay, so I will try and reach out. Is he on Facebook? How do we reach out to him? So everybody interested in that, I'm sure there's going to be a lot of them. And then Happy Fox writes, the balance shaft belts are $80. Yeah, they're a little pricey, but definitely. I mean, I would be more worried about changing the timing belt, but every time I do it, I go ahead and change both belts. But I mean, hiking in Surrey writes, Hope you have a great holiday. Merry Christmas from Germany. Well, Merry Christmas to you as well. I was in Germany this time last year. I enjoyed it very much. We went to all the Christmas markets on the Danube. It was a wonderful time. So yeah, we found someone that can fix our hatches. I don't have one. I'm sure some of them need to be repaired here, but I don't think that anyone has requested that so far. But I'll definitely check him out. Okay. Toasted Pirate writes, do you always recommend the water pump at each belt change? What is the frequency there? So, no, I don't recommend the water pump at every belt change. I do the water pumps like every 2 or 3. Just want to make sure you use good coolant. So, the blue coolant replaces the green coolant, and it can go 150,000 miles. And if your system's clean, you're keeping it flush properly, you need to go 30,000 miles if you're on the green stuff, maybe even more. I think it's 3 years, 30,000 miles. Flush it, call it good. If you're starting to get trash and you're starting to see rust in your cooling system, then yeah, you're probably going to want to change your water pump and just get all that stuff out of there. But if you're taking care of everything and you're using good coolant and you're doing proper coolant flushes and you're not over tightening the belt, you can probably go 100,000 miles even on a Euro pump. Those things go forever. It's all about just maintenance, taking care of everything incrementally. But any favorite rollers? I have a new roller failing, and the belt is sweet and sloppy. Not too sloppy. You don't want to slap in the cover or anything, but no favorite rollers. I think the INF or whatever they are is typically INA. I think it's INA. Those rollers are typically the ones we have in stock. I haven't seen any failure problems with it. Yeah, INA. I haven't seen any problems with those, but I'm sure it happens. But as far as rollers, I do those every other belt change as well. So if it's 4 years, I go 8 years. Water pump the same way. I'll just do those like every 8 years. But I mean, after 8 years, you go in there and you look, the cooling system's still clean and everything looks good and everything spins right and doesn't feel like it's wore out. Then it's a water pump, should last a long time. Um, Standing outside for okay, so maybe some moisture, humidity got in there if it was sitting outside for a while. But yeah, I don't really have a preference on them. We order bulk stuff, so it depends on like who sends me stuff. Sometimes I'll go to Pelican Parts and just order stuff if I need it, or I'll put in an order somewhere. We use several different places depending on the availability, and sometimes I just get what I get. But I think everybody always sends me the INAs, and I don't think I've ever seen a problem with those. But if you get one out of the box and it's bad, then just send it back to them. Or if it's been sitting for a while, it's probably a good idea to just get another one. Hiking in Sierra says, thank you all for taking my call at your shop a while back about my 944 Safari build. For the time being, the car is still stock. Just use a CX50 up in the NC Mountains there. Yeah, that's no problem. Yeah. So yeah, that belt, the roller or the car was sitting outside for a while. It has extra wine now. Yeah. So that's another thing that we could talk about. Give me a second. Let's see if I can come up with something. Be right back. I think. So I don't want to go wandering off for 20 minutes at a time, but what I'm trying to do here is I've got two examples of balance shaft belts, and then we can talk about the balance shaft belts a little bit. So I have sat on the phone for many hours with belt manufacturers trying to ask them questions, and a lot of this stuff I don't see pop up on forums, or a lot of times you'll see just information of people speculating stuff. So as soon as I find one, but in the meantime, go ahead and write in questions you guys have. Tell me what you're working on. I'm going to try and be back. I know I got one laying around here. I should just be able to pick up. But give me just a second. Okay. So Happy Fox says you can put your finger on it and the roller and feel it. Yeah, I would just go ahead and change it. I don't think that you're probably uh, going to find another manufacturer, as far as I know. Yeah. All right. So I can just skip that for now. The funny thing is that normally, well, first of all, we just never know what we're going to get into talking about on these live streams. But second of all, normally the type of balance shaft belt that I'm looking for is just laying around here. I've got like 15 or 20 of them. But of course, today I actually have this style. So, yeah, I don't want to spend a live stream looking around the shop when I could be interacting with you guys. Doesn't make for very much entertainment. But hey, maybe I'll just take you with me. Uh, I don't want to spoil the surprise either. I want to kind of talk about it. If I find it, I find it. If not, oh, of course not. It's two more. Oh, no. These are what I'm looking for. Okay, perfect. Okay, this is what I'm looking for. Okay, I knew I had them somewhere. All right, so as you can tell, we do a lot of belt changes. All right, so one of the guys was talking about now he has an extra wine, and people talk about the balance shaft wine a lot, and I'll hear on forums a lot of times, or people are contacting me. They're like, I've got my balance shaft loose as possible, and it still has a whine that drives me crazy. It sounds like a supercharger. So Alex G said, if you need original part examples, there should be belts, pulleys, water pump, etc. Oh, thanks. I think so. I actually found mine, so I got everything together here. So Adam A says, hello from Cape Town, South Africa. Well, welcome to the show, man. That is a long way away. Proud owner of an 89 952. That is awesome. All right, so back to the belts. People will get a brand new belt, and they'll usually buy the Dacos, which is this style here. And even the Continental has started making this style. And they'll loosen the belt up as far as they can get it. And they say it still sounds like a really loud supercharger. So that's because they got this belt. Hopefully you guys can see it. You can see that they have these little notches in the teeth. Get the fuzz off of it. This is out of the trash, so you know, a little dust on it. But yeah, so you can tell that there. Now this is what the original balance shaft balance shaft belt would have looked like. You can see it does not have those. It's nice and smoothly rounded. So with these types of belts, these are typically your cheaper belts, but they are made of harder rubber. And according to Daco, whenever you see these, they are performance belts. So it's a little bit harder rubber, and you shouldn't do that to a new one. It should never go any smaller than about that right there. But this rubber is much, much harder. And those little pockets in there just are usually the dead giveaway that it's made of the harder rubber. And these things just whine no matter what you do to them. So if you want to get rid of your balance shaft belt whine, it's not going to completely eliminate it, but if you want to make it quieter, then you're going to have to spend the extra money and get the old style. I had one of these on my 84, actually both of my 84s, and you really don't hear it. But I have one of these belts on my 88 924S, and you sounds like a Hellcat. But yeah, so the reason why I use these belts is because, well, it's supposed to be a better belt. It's loud, but it's supposed to be a better belt, first of all. Second of all, I use it because it works, and didn't need to spend extra money just to get the sound to go away. I don't hear the sound when I'm in the car anyway. But when you get out, when it's going down the road, it definitely makes a noise. So anyway, that's the two differences between your balance shaft belts. And but that one, this one here, you're just never really going to get rid of that whine. So for most of the cars here, we do go with the original, but it depends on what they want to do. If the customer doesn't care, then put one of these on there. Cheaper belt. And supposedly better belt. Happy Fox says mine around it still whines. Great, like it's supposed to. Yeah. But the rounded ones are a little bit softer rubber, and they are a lot quieter. But you're gonna still hear it though. But my 88 924S, same tension on all of them. You hear it a mile away when you get out of the car. When you're driving, it doesn't matter. But so someone had asked me if we'd finished the turbocharged 16 valve 968 yet. No, we got the suspension on there. We got the brakes going on. We got some of the wiring. We got the wiring in. We have brand new battery cables going on it. They got a lot of stuff going on, but it's still, it seems like every day it's more and more it needs to be done to it, but it's slowly getting there. Like I said, we've got the big S brakes going on it. He says, I have my belt cover off at the moment. Everybody knows it's coming. And OG Bobby Chavez says, how's it going? I'm just tuning in for the first time. Well, welcome to the live stream. I'm glad you could join us. So far, we've had a lot of fun. And don't forget, you can always go back and rewatch these live streams at any time. I got a mess in here. We had the HVAC guys in here this week, so it looks okay over here, but I moved everything that was there over here, so it's just a giant mess and stuff coming in, stuff going out. But yeah, welcome to it. We were just talking about different belts. Yeah, I'm glad that everybody joined us. We were able to get this rolling much quicker than we do some weeks. Usually about the time everybody comes to join me, then that's about the time that I get off here. But yeah, so far we've had a great live stream. He says, I have a 78 924 that I'm trying to rebuild. Well, awesome, man. John Campbell says, just joined from Iron Station. Wow, that's just up the road. How's the shop feel in the winter? Cold? So glad you asked, I guess. No, now we're staying warm. The summer we stayed pretty comfortable too. It gets really hot. So we have these two little heaters on each side over here. And that's what we used last winter. But unfortunately, like, it still had cold patches in here. So not only did that work, you had to turn the temperature way up, and then you end up with an extraordinary power bill with these electric heaters. So that didn't work out too well. So now we have a heat pump, and it does not have cold patches, and it stays warm in here now. So this year we're good. But last year, still a little chilly whenever we would get over here under these cars. And it didn't matter how warm you got it in here. It just seemed to have cold patches. But during the summer, we had some air conditioner units because the first summer I was in here, they told us that it gets hot in here. And I'm like, heat don't bother me. And it gets like 110, 120. You're like, okay, I'm done. So now this also does AC. So we should be good now. But we stayed pretty comfortable this year. But this is a bigger unit than what we had. So now we're going to be comfortable all the time. So thank you guys for asking. Let's see. My ECU got stolen out at some point, and I'm looking for a standalone that will work to see if my motor is still even good. You're just looking for a spare? If you need a spare ECU or something, then there's lots of people that can help. 944 Barn on Instagram, he could probably get one to you. And Subliminal says, might be towing my turbo up to you soon to give it a go over. Well, awesome. Yeah, just let me know. My email address is on the website, address.info.com, gmail.com. And let's see. FCIC in the guy in Charlotte who you did the 2.7 liter head for the car by the shop. Okay. Oh yeah, yeah. I did. We rebuilt the 2.7 liter head for you. So I need. Yeah, yeah. Awesome. That'd be awesome. Yeah, come on by. Yeah, I remember doing that. It's been like a year ago. So you got it running? Well, that's awesome. It says, sweet. I have to hit them up and see. Yeah, just get a spare DME. I keep them around here because sometimes we get cars in that won't start, and it's the computer. I just did a whole thing on no start conditions on the 944s, and we got a car that we'd had in here before. It'd been about 3 years. The guy hadn't driven it. And he goes up to start it, doesn't start, brings it to us. We throw another computer in. Now we have tack bounce. We have injectors firing. It had lost all compression in the engine. So that was fine. So anyway, he soaked the cylinders in some sea foam overnight or something, and he got the compression back and he's driving it again. But sometimes the computers do go out. He said the car's ripping pretty much, hopped up on the 2.7. Now the headers and the lightweight flywheel really woke the car up. That's awesome. And Eddie says, any websites you recommend to purchase new parts? Yeah, just keep in mind I'm not affiliated with any of these guys, but I use multiple sites just because you just never know who's going to have what. But I use a lot of Pelican parts and 944 online. We also have WorldPack. I do order a lot from them as well, but not so much lately. Their stock's dwindling, but yeah, as far as the at-home guy, those are the two major websites. But yeah, I'd love to see that 2.7 liter car, man. It'd be awesome. Well, all right, guys. It's almost been an hour now. I am going to get off here. I appreciate you all coming out. Don't forget, we're going to try and do this every week. I try and come up with something different to do every week. Sometimes we go through and we watch just videos. I do have an idea. I might go back through some of my older videos. I filmed a lot of new stuff, but I just never get around to editing it. But we might go through some of my older videos and just commentate and have fun and ask questions about stuff. So anyway, guys, right now I'm just going to get off here. Don't forget to join me next week. I really appreciate you all coming out. Had a lot of fun, and we'll see you soon.